Good morning.
I'm assuming that's right.
Good morning and welcome to Unity of Springfield's Adult Education, World Religions and New Thought class. Welcome to both of you that are here in the classroom and joining us also on live stream or watching later on. I'm John Braucher. I've been attending Unity of Springfield for several years, and I spent 5 years sharing my energy on the board here, and have been graced with continued spiritual growth and relationships here. I have been active in the men's group, first Tuesday of every month. Just give a little plug for that. And also, I sponsor the grief group, which is the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month, and at 6 p.m. And I love spending time assisting with cold weather shelter, as well as the Planet Unity event, which we present with Lisa's guidance each spring. We wouldn't be able to do that without it. It's a joy for me to share this time discussing the writings of Don Miguel Ruiz. Ruiz was born into a family of healers in rural Mexico. His mother was a curandera healer, and his father was a Nago, or shaman. And they really thought he was going to go into the family business of continuing this. But instead, he went to medical school, went to Mexico City, became a neurosurgeon, and practiced in northern Mexico, in Tijuana, in the hospital. In the early 70s, he was driving and he awoke suddenly because he had fallen asleep at the wheel and got into a car accident, hit a cement embankment, and had an out-of-body experience and observed his body rescue his two friends out of the car before it exploded into flames. And that really shocked him and just kind of stopped him. And he, at that point in time, he really started doing some really in-deep inquiry, and that led him back into learning from his mother. She became a teacher of his, and then he also found another shaman, an older shaman in rural Mexico that he studied under. And that led to the writings. The initial was the Four Agreements, and then some of the other books. Today, I'm going to talk about the mystery of love, or the mastery of love. But I'm also going to go over some of the basic elements in the Four Agreements, and because and review some of the Nagual and the Toltec teachings that underlie the books that the Ruizes, both he and his son, write. And he's also had some other co-authors. In fact, I used one of their books in the grief group, which he co-authored a book on grief, which is really good and really is aligned a lot with Unity teachings. I first became aware of the Four Agreements in the Ruiz writing several years ago here at Unity of Springfield. And I shared the basic ideas, particularly the Four Agreements. I used to have a handout. I worked as a psychotherapist for 40 years, and that was something I was doing those last several years, was handing out the Four Agreements and sharing how that could be coping strategy skills that folks could use in their practical everyday life. So today is going to be part one, and then in 2 weeks, I'm going to come back and do part two. Part one is going to be really putting down the framework of the Toltec way of looking at it, and the basics of the first half of this book, Mastery of Love. which is really looking at the issue of fear and love. And then the second part is going to be more of the specific ways of addressing and doing the transformative work to transform fear into love. And we'll get into some of some of that already today, but then next time we'll spend more focus on just the transformation part and some practical ways to enable that. So we're going to start with meditation. So if you just kind of relax, get a little bit centered. So I asked the Creator, does fear ever go away? Do we reach a plateau where fear no longer lingers in the corners of our mind? He whispered, typically no. Fear ebbs and flows like waves on the ocean. We simply learn to recognize it sooner, pause it, and turn it into loving trust. But I don't like fear. It rumbles like a thunderstorm in my stomach. My mind fills with conflicting thoughts, like electricity sparking through my nerves. Try this, the Creator whispered. When you feel fear rising within you, pause. Recognize it. Name it. And then smile. Let your smile release a flow of calm energy in your brain. Then replace the fearful thoughts with a soothing prayer. May I be at peace. May I be safe. May I be free from fear and filled with love. Let whatever words you need become the pathway to inner peace. Whenever fear chases you down again, simply repeat this process as you train your mind to release fear and put on the cloak of abiding. He's got you. I did.
Sorry for the
No problem. So this next part is going to be kind of discussion. We're going to talk about some of the terms, and the reason I wanted to do that is because, like a lot of things, a lot of spiritual, the whole essence of what Creator, God, is ineffable. In other words, it really, words can't really describe what we're talking about. And language can get very confusing. For instance, the word denial. Sometimes in this case, it's going to be used in Unity. We think of denials as being it's a positive action that we take to remove negative things from our life, the way it's taught by the beginners, the people who created the Unity movement. But in AA and in a lot of other ways, it's thought of a way of blocking or avoiding something that is true. So, in this book, there is a use of denial in that use of blocking or avoiding something that's true. So I just wanted to kind of make sure we're all on the same page.
So others, it's a river in Egypt.
Yes, it is. Yeah, which comes, that's an AA bill. 12-step bill. So domestication is, and the first time I ever heard that phrase, it came from the Ruism in the foreground. And so is that, somebody want to read the definition that's on the handout here? Okay.
Growing up from a young child of love and no limitations to being trained in our family.
We can start over.
Sure. Growing up from a young child of love and no limitations to being trained in our family, community, culture, and experience. The concepts of lack, judgment, primacy of the material world, guilt, shame, and a focus on fear that we are not loved, lovable, loving.
Pretty negative,
Domestication.
pretty negative thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I don't know that it's negative as much as it is the way we're just naturally trained up in the material world that we manifested into.
Would you want to call it natural?
Sure.
I'm just,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't gone through that, who survives past 5 years old,
I give it up.
that doesn't go through that process. It's just, it is a natural process of being born into some kind of community of some type. So I don't really see it as being negative, but it is a challenge in the recalling of who we really are. In the process of doing that, we have to move beyond that.
Well, isn't it more of a, thank you for that. Isn't it more of a, like a process of transformation at a younger age where we begin to see who we are, not necessarily who others want us to be? I think that's, I don't know if that really relates that much to what you just said, but I think it does from the vantage point of, as a young person, depending on what we're born into, whether it's a wealthy family or a family who has little resources or things we go through, or parents that are fighting all the time, or lack of whatever that impacts our identity as to who we are. I think all those come into play.
Well, that's a really good point, because domestication isn't the same for all of us. It's unique. It's unique to each one of us. Also, an example that he uses in the book is that, 3-year-olds, 2-3-year-olds, when they're either playing with their siblings or when they see another child on a play date or whatever, they just want to play. And all they know is this natural love. They don't know rejection. They don't know any of the things that we become enculturated. They may not even really totally have the idea of no, the word no, and it still becomes a playful thing, and they'll say no right back to you. And it doesn't have any of the negative connotations yet. And domestication is that process where the child starts to understand these are the limits. You can't do this. You can do this. And so it's not a negative thing. It just is a part of how we become Well, domesticated.
It doesn't have to be a name.
Yeah.
Well, I think of my daughter Katie, who we adopted from China when she was 1, and she started having seizures when she was 5. She's like a totally different person before than after when she started having seizures. And she'd have 30 or 40 seizures a day, sometimes more. And you know, when we started getting medication for that, at first she would sleep virtually all day. She slept through the whole first grade. But when she came out of that, and when she got even further into who she was going to become, the medicine that she took was so strong that it defined who she was. And it's really interesting now, 30 years later, the really nice person she's become, but it's really interesting what psychodramatic or whatever they call it, medications that people take at whatever age has such a dramatic impact or effect on who they are. And I again, it's just an amazing difference, I think. But I look at her as an example as to who she was, or we thought she was, at 3, 4, and 5 years old, until she started having all these seizures, and it just changed.
Okay, we need to move because we got a lot of. So next one's personal dream. Somebody like to read?
All right.
All right.
Personal dream. Our creative interaction with the material world. We naturally learn to this personal dreaming with context of our domestication. Our hope is to move beyond this point.
Okay. So personal dream is what we would just call reality. You know, it's what we experience in this three-dimensional reality. It's our personal dream. It's what we experience. And the reason, the importance of the concept of personal dream, it gets to what Dan was talking about, how different domestication can be between different people, is that my personal dream is not your personal dream. It is not their personal dream. And even within a family, all the personal dreams are very unique to each individual. Because our perception is going to be unique and different because of, I don't know. I remember when my children were small, and from the day they were born, they were different from each other. There was clear differences, personality-wise, behaviorally-wise, energy-wise. They were just different. Now, they shared some of the domestication things because the environment was very similar, but they were not the same, and they didn't respond to the domestication in the same way. Yeah.
We arrive here fully who we are. Completely.
Well, we interact with our environment. So it's, and so one of the things in healthcare that I really became to, I learned it, but then it was really evident. There was something that I learned back in the 70s called the genetic stress model. And that was basically that genetics proves that everything is an environment, and environmental research proves that everything isn't genetic. So there's always this interaction, this interplay between, who we came here to be and what we experience. And I think that's That's always true. There's always all of these possibilities, right? Infinite number of possibilities that at any point we choose. Okay, so the dream of the planet, and for sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and take this one. So it's the collective dream of the billions of individuals that are here on this earth. It's that collective dream of all the individual dreams. And it's the mass reality on the earth, on the planet. And it's, as I say here, includes the dreams of families, dreams of communities, dreams of cities, dreams of the country, dreams of all the humanity. It includes society's rules, beliefs, laws, religions, government, schools, everything. All is included in it. And it's important because we, in our dream, in our individual personal, we're experiencing this dream of the planet as well. Okay, or it's the context within our personal dream is occurring. So that's just that concept. Attention. The word attention is used, the ability to discriminate and focus only on what we wish, only on that which we want to perceive. So the ability to discriminate and focus only on that which we want to perceive.
I'm just take a step back to the last part, the collective dream.
Sure.
And everything. I used to think the collective dream was all the rules and all of those things and how we played out that. But I also can see that there's a collective desire underneath of all of those, and I call it logic. Do I want to be happy? Do I want to be sad? Do I want to love? Do I want to hate? And I think that's also part of that that underlies that is we're all seeking love. We're all seeking our good, like Emma Curtis Hawkins says. Some of us just are choosing ways that are never going to work.
There you go. Well, and because it is presented to us in a material manner, it's easy to get off track if we don't look more closely and look deeper. So the adults around us hooked our attention and placed information into our minds through repetition as we're raised by our parents and the adults around us, which may or may not be parents. It could be other people as well. And that's how we learned everything we knew and learned our dream and our current access to the dream of the planet. That also, okay, and we'll talk a little bit later about the parasite theory too. So then we'll move on down. Everything in existence is a manifestation of the one living being we call God or Source or whatever. So everything in existence is a manifestation of the one being. So we're not separate. We're unique parts of a whole. Yeah.
That being said, if spirit is eternal, and matter is just a continuation from dust to dust to dust, regardless of time and space, then if your spirit is ongoing and basically never ending, then your life today is just a continuation of a spirit, correct?
Correct.
So that means what you just said means that whatever we're here to do or accomplish can be considered a continuation of where we left off the last time. If you want to think that.
It's possible.
Yeah. So,
What we don't know is what transformation occurs in the,
okay. So
in the meantime.
that sense of God or the unknown is evolutionary almost. How we evolve through our sense of who that unknown. How do we fit? How does spirit fit into the unknown, and what is our responsibility to it?
So again, in Ruiz's writings, he remarks, human perception is light perceiving light. And the real us is pure love, pure light. So that unseen, and maybe it's seen at times, but potentially unseen, that God part of us, source part of us, is an energy, essentially, which now we know in quantum physics, sometimes it's, especially when attention, that word that we talked about before, turns it into matter. That energy just becomes matter because somebody's attending to it.
If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Very.
I'm sorry. What?
She said, if you don't mind, it don't matter.
Mind over matter.
And once he knew what he really was, he saw himself in everything. So in the introduction here, he talks about this first chapter, the introductory chapter. He tells a story of the master. And the master said, I know you are busy and everyone wants your attention. And I know you hardly have time even to listen to my words, but my heart is so open. I feel so much love for you, and I have the need to invite you into my home. I want to prepare the best meal for you, and I don't know, and I don't expect you will accept, but I just had to let you know. Okay, so this person's talking to the master. The master said, prepare everything, I will be there. So the guy goes home and he prepares everything and he just gets everything ready for it. The man's waiting anxiously at the door and he opens the door. Someone knocks on the door, he opens it. And it's an old woman. She looked into his eyes, I am starving. Can you give me a piece of bread? The man was a little bit disappointed because it was the master. He said, please come into my house. And he shares his food that he made for the master of this woman. But he was anxious. He could hardly wait for her to finish. And so when he did, and she was touched by generosity, she thanked him and left. He was just preparing the table again for the master. And then someone else knocked on the door. Stranger looked in. He says, I am thirsty. Can you give me something to drink? Again, he was disappointed. But he brought him in, invited him into his home. He served him wine and he intended to give to the master. And when the stranger left, again, he started to rush and try and get prepared for the master. And then somebody else knocked. This time, a child looked up at the man and said, "I'm freezing. Can you give me a blanket?" Over my body. The man was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't the master, and he looked in the eyes of the child and felt love in his heart. So he gathered the clothes he intended to give to the master, and he covered the child with the clothes. The child thanked him and left. The man prepared everything again for the master and waited until it was very late. Then he realized the master wasn't coming. He was disappointed, but right away he forgave the master. He said, "I knew I could not expect the master to come to this humble home. Although he said he would come, something more important must have come up." Slowly he put the food away, put the wine away, and went to bed. Then he didn't know that he was dreaming, but he said, "Master, you came, you kept your word." Master replied, "Yes, I'm here, but I was here before. I was hungry, you filled my need for food, I was thirsty, and you gave me my wine. I was cold, and you covered me with clothes. Whatever you do for others, you do for me." And the story of the master obviously has some biblical roots in it. And some of the modern Toltec shows the master teacher of Jesus kind of starts to infiltrate the Toltec wisdom as well. So I just wanted to point that out because that is something that's real. So life is the force of the absolute, the creator who creates everything. Tonal refers to the stars and the fact that we come from the stars. And Nagwal is the light between the stars. Okay, so we think of the stars having some mass to them. And then the light is between the stars, which kind of also represents us. Nagwal is also the term used for shaman, Toltec shaman. So, and then I wanted to refer to the four agreements themselves. Number one, being impeccable with your word, which I presented these. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and fourth, always do your best. And I probably handed that out to well over 1,000 people that I saw, clients. And I never had a client go, "This doesn't make any sense." To a person, they always go, "I never heard it said that way. But yeah, those really make sense. Really, they ring true." Okay? Because when we're really saying what we mean, and when we don't take anything personally because it's not about us, what other people say, and when we don't make assumptions, which is also another way of saying be non-judgmental, and when we always just try and do our best, whatever that is, then it's just it's an effective way to live our lives.
Can't argue with any of
Yeah.
So for me, long before this, the idea of being impeccable with my word was if I said something, I never could change it. And so I think that one of the lessons that I learned is that I can be impeccable with my word, and change something, because the guilt that I felt when I got out of a bad marriage, my word said, till death do us part.
Mhm.
And then I realized that it wasn't good for me, it wasn't good for him, it wasn't good for our children, for me to keep that word. So I guess I add that to impeccable with your word. You can be honorable and say, yes, I gave my word here, but I'm doing something different. But still be honest with people about the change you made.
At the time when you said it, it's what you meant.
Yeah.
That's impeccable. And the current moment is where you are now. So what we said in the past actually doesn't exist in the now.
But it makes who you are now.
It's a part of the journey, but it isn't here now. It's not now. It doesn't exist now. Any more than the future exists in the now.
Can't that be a cop-out for being impeccable with your word?
No, not if you are impeccable in the current moment.
Whose opinion is that?
Well, I think it's metaphysically true.
Yeah.
I think he means who decides if you're impeccable.
Well, go ahead.
We definitely decide if we're impeccable or not, because we are the ones who are taking the actions actually speaking. And I think we should go to the fourth agreement, always do your best. And in the moment when you got married and you made those vows, you had every intention of doing your best. But that also takes two to make a commitment to somebody else in life. And if they didn't do their best that you did, you came to a point eventually where you saw that you needed to do your best for not only yourself but for your children and get out of it something that you made a commitment to. So in a sense, you were still doing your best, and even though you didn't honor your word after you made those vows, you still did your best.
Mm-hmm. And you only know what you know at the time, in any moment. I mean, and that's, I don't care if you're a little kid or if you're an old man or anywhere in between. You only know what you're aware of right now.
And it really all boils down to really here and now. This is all that there is. And you can do the very best you can, making all the judgments that you wish to make about what you're going to say next. And it's true at that moment.
Well, and practically speaking, the only time we have the power to choose is in the current moment. And that makes all the difference in the world. That's why that's all that really exists, because we don't have any power to choose to change what we did 50 years ago. We can only choose to change what we say and do today.
Could we then make a, can you hear?
Yeah.
Can we then make the generalization that to make a vow for a lifetime is not a wise thing to do? Because you have to assume that you're never going to change. Nothing's going to change, and everything changes. So this would lead me to the idea that marriage is on its way out.
Well, I don't know that. I would say that what a vow like that is an intention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's an intention, but
it's an intention which is not guaranteed.
I promise you for tomorrow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you made a promise based on who you are in the present.
Correct.
But you don't know who you're going to be 5 minutes from now.
Right.
So if you make a promise in the moment, if you're destined
Well, we
to
knew that.
change,
Yeah, we knew
which we
that.
are, from moment to moment, which happens, then the person we are now in the present is not who we will be either 5 minutes from now or tomorrow. Because we are going to change, we're required to change, because that's what physics and all this other stuff tells us. So what may feel good now that we respond to in the present may not be what we feel we need to respond to or tomorrow.
Correct.
So change is inevitable and must occur. We have no choice. We're not who we are going to be 5 minutes from now. So if you live in the present moment, which we're talking about now, then who it is we're supposed to become in the future would be a totally different person than who we are in the present.
Right. So I think what that brings us to is that part of being impeccable with our word means not taking it lightly to make a promise that goes into the future. Not doing that lightly because the fact is that there is change, and the only constant is change, and that will be a part of it. Okay, judge and victim. Judge and victim is part of the internal conversation, or I sometimes refer to it as the internal dialogue that we all experience based on beliefs that we didn't necessarily choose during our childhood. So some of the results of the domestication is that we have judgmental thoughts. And I know when I was studying dialectical behavior therapy, one of the practices we had was to spend a day and write down or count each judgmental thought that we had throughout the day. And I was aghast. And at the number of judgmental thoughts. And the other practice that we had was and I've shared this before in group, is that we had a group where we were teaching ourselves how to do that, a group of therapists, and we had somebody who would be silent the entire group meeting, the whole staff meeting. And all they did is they had a singing bowl, Tibetan singing bowl, and every time they heard a judgmental statement, they would hit the bowl. And everybody had to stop and figure out what was the judgmental statement. And it just heightened awareness so that, as in this meditation that we did this morning, you can pause and redirect.
Isn't judgment really just comparing yourself, your domestication, to somebody
No,
else's?
say that again, I can't hear you.
Isn't judgment just comparing yourself, your domestications, to somebody else, and you're judging them because it's not an agreement that you made with yourself? So therefore, I'm judging you because, well, I would never do that because I wasn't domesticated in that way.
It could be. That could be a reason. There's two different concepts. One's discrimination, which is to identify something that is different from something else. Okay, and that's discrimination. Judgment is an opinion that something is right or wrong or good or bad.
But back to the beginning, when we're talking about the young child, and bringing it forward to where you're at today, but now, that transitional phase of what you are, what you grow up in, the environmental impact of who you were up until you were 18, 19 years old or whatever, and found yourself or find some other identity, bringing that forward to where you are today now, that defines the presence and who you are today. The movement from who they tried to say you were as a child to today, who you are now, who you now an adult, and making your own decisions as to who that is.
Correct.
Then that feeds into what you're talking about here as far as that becoming who you intended to be, not who you were supposed to be, but who you are here to evolve into. And I think that's the whole point of what he is trying to tell us.
Mhm. Yeah, that there's that journey of
That his whole premise here,
increased awareness.
his whole premise is for us to become who we're supposed to become. And the guide that he is trying to provide is just simply a mechanism to help us to go there.
Mhm.
So I think that's the value of what you're saying, and I appreciate very much.
Mhm.
And what he's saying is that we are here to learn who we are and to go there.
Parasite. So the parasite is the device of the term for transgenerational injection of beliefs placed inside of you that can often lead to suffering. The power of the parasite is driven by the emotions based on fear. So the parasite, not all of domestication is fear-based, but the parasite is the part that is. And it often comes, great-grandparents to grandparents to parents, and something that kind of follows through. It can also come from culture. It can also come from unfortunate experiences that can occur in our growing up years. It can even occur as an adult. Obviously, PTSD is something that can occur from childhood to all different ages. Image of perfection is a term, it's a set of expectations that we're taught we should follow, look like, sound like, be like, that are not consistent with our current manifestation, resulting in emotional poison or suffering. So you were talking about comparing between, different domestications. Well, also when we see where we're at in our current what we've evolved to, and we compare ourselves to this image of perfection, it can feel rotten, feel very negative. And so it's just a term it's just a language that they have to express that exists.
I wonder if what the importance is of this domestication. How effective is it really? Because I know many people who've had absolutely terrible domestication, and they turn out to be wonderful adults.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you about people who had every possible advantage and turn out to be losers. So, what is the overall effect, really, of domestication? Is it positive? Is it absolute?
It's neither. It's neither.
Yeah.
It's just the situation that the person finds themselves that creates the path.
Mm-hmm.
I think that 250 years of us becoming a country, and you look at people coming here, and also the indigenous populations as to what they have lived through, as we have come to where we are. You have people coming from all over the world, our own families, many of them, generations ago.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I've got to move so we can, because I want to hit the track of love and track of fear.
All right.
So Denial system lets us pretend that everyone believes what we want them to believe about us. So it's that mindset that how we see ourselves, projecting ourselves, is how others see us. That's kind of mind blowing. Sit with that for a minute or two and go, oh crap. Okay. This limit of self-abuse is the limit you will tolerate from other people. If someone abuses you more than you abuse yourself, you walk away. If someone abuses you less than you abuse yourself, you may choose to stay longer. The underlying premise that you still deserve that abuse. Following up to that, life brings you exactly what you need. If you open your eyes and see what's around you, it's exactly what you need to clean your poison, to heal your wounds, to accept yourself, to get out of hell. How much you love yourself is the price. And life respects that price. When you love yourself, your price is very high, which means your tolerance for self-abuse is very low. Now listen, we just moved from abuse from others to self-abuse. It's very low because you respect yourself. If not, your price is lower, allowing for more self-abuse. Okay, so the next piece, I want to share another short story. And this is the man who didn't believe in love. So this was a guy, he said, love is just for religions and poets and people who are into romance and stuff, and it doesn't really exist. And he proved it to himself by failed relationships over and over again. And he just said, look, it doesn't really exist. And so he was out one evening and he saw this woman and she was crying. And he went up to her and he says, what's wrong? And she says, well, I've just realized that true love really doesn't exist. And so long story short, he's enthralled because he goes, oh yeah, you're right. That's, you're fitting in with my mindset. And so they became friends. And everything was like, okay, love doesn't exist, so I don't expect anything from you. You're probably just full of shit no matter what, so I'm not going to expect anything. And they just really got along and really enjoyed each other. And essentially, they ended up falling in love because they didn't expect anything from each other, but they enjoyed being with each other because they were on the same wavelength, and they really had a good time until he wanted to somehow, he found this star, and the story goes, and he gives the star to her, and she was so overwhelmed that she really couldn't receive it, and that broke their relationship. And the whole story of this myth is about that the love was because they were loving the other person. The love they were giving was just from their self, freely given. And when that was given, then the love was real. As soon as they started to feel like they were somehow beholden, somehow had to, that kind of created a collapse. So the mastery of love comes up has a chapter on the track of love and fear, and that's on the back page. So, and this relates to all relationships, not just romantic relationships, to our children, to our parents, our siblings, lifelong friendships, work people, casual interactions, and most importantly, to ourselves, our own relationship with ourselves. Yeah.
Don't you think that part, part of that's because the expectation comes in. One of my sisters, when her and her husband were married, it really wasn't a good thing. They really weren't good to each other or good for each other. But when they got divorced, he came and lived around them. They were more of a family. They are best friends. But the conditioning of what it means to be a husband and a wife got in the way of them loving each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a perfect example of that. Yeah. And so he comes up with that there's two main sources of emotions. There's a lot of different emotions. But most of them either come from love or fear. And so he says, love has no obligations. Fear is full of obligations. Love has no expectations. Fear is full of expectations. Love is based on self-respect. Fear doesn't respect anything, including itself. Love is ruthless. I like this one because it kind of caught me. What? It doesn't feel sorry for anyone. And it does have compassion. Fear is full of pity. It doesn't think the other is strong enough to make it. Compassion comes from respect and love. Feeling sorry comes from a lack of respect and from fear. Love is responsible. Fear avoids responsibility. And that's where a lot of the negative context of denial is all wrapped up in this fear of responsibility. And that's self-responsibility, which is the only kind that really exists. Love is kind. Fear is unkind. Love is unconditional, and fear is conditional. And finally, he says, we don't have the right to change anyone else, and no one has the right to change us. Well, yes. I mean, they can have an impact. They can influence. Susan wanted the mic.
This morning, before I got here, I watched that, I think it's a Disney flick, A Wrinkle in Time,
Oh, yes.
and it was all about all of this.
Madeline, what's her last name? Wrote that book. My daughter read that.
It's an incredible
Junior
story, and I
Great.
remember there was a book too, and I think I read it years ago.
Yeah.
But
It's a good book.
it's everything that you're saying.
Mhm.
They experience all of this stuff in the movie, all of it, on the judgmental side and the
England.
non-judgmental side.
Madeline Eden wrote that.
And it's an incredible movie book if you haven't read it.
It is. It is. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So next week is, let's see, it'll be in the announcements. So why don't I do the announcements now? Okay. Join us this evening and every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. for a peaceful meditation session. Come join a quiet space to relax, reflect, and reconnect. All are welcome. Next Sunday for our celebration service, we will begin again. Welcome Amy Burnett back as our guest speaker. Amy has been an active member for more than 12 years and currently serves as our board president. Everybody knows she rocks. Next Sunday is our next Friendship Sunday potluck, and we won't have an adult education next Sunday. And then, because we'll be setting up for the potluck. But then I'll do part 2 the following. We're excited to share the Glide Express Car Wash is partnering with Unity of Springfield to help raise money for our food pantry. For every car wash purchased with the Unity of Springfield coupon, Glide Express will donate $1 directly to our food pantry. It's that simple. We all wash our cars anyways, so why not make it count for something good? Be sure to grab your coupon at the connection. Carla Quincy and John Ross would like to invite everyone to join them for a fun and relaxing movie night here at the church on March 12th at 7 p.m. The movie will be Defending Your Life. Bring your friends and family and your favorite snacks for this evening of connection and community.
That's a really good movie, by the way. Meryl Streep and
Albert,
Brooks. Yeah, really good.
Planning is underway for our 9th annual Planet Unity Earth Day celebration on April 17th, 18th. We are now accepting vendors and sponsors. Stop by the connection table in the foyer for all the details. This year, we are excited to announce that we are partnering. Sponsor is Eden Village. We are going to show a short video explaining what Eden Village is and then invite Molly Thornhill up to briefly talk about Eden Village.
we got our cat there and she says it's great.
The cat.
From Eden Village?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will go ahead and turn this off, and then we can go ahead and meet up in the back. It always is slow connection.